Thank you. Hello, hello. So we are going to go ahead and get started, and people can join in as they come into the environment. And I want to thank you ladies for joining me here this afternoon. I'm Julie Ashlock, owner of Jules Body Shop, and I am presenting this mastermind cohort today in collaboration with She Rises Studios and the She Economy, founded by Hannah Olivas. So I'm super excited to be able to have this opportunity to share with you ladies today. I am going to do my presentation, and then at the end, we will open it up for questions and comments, because I'm super excited to hear your thoughts on what I'm about to present to you. I will, as a matter of housekeeping, be asking you ladies to provide me in the chat with your email information, contact information. I do have some shares that I will be sharing at the end of my presentation, and I'm sure you're going to want them. So I do need your contact information to be able to provide them with you. So that being said, let me get going here and get the slides going. So let me just get to the top of what I need here. All right. Everybody can see my screen okay? Yes? Good? Okay. So my talk for today is about the preparation tax. And we're going to get into the first slide here. Maybe I'm going to get into the first slide here. Okay. So I want to ask you something before we start, and I want you to actually answer it, not for the room, simply for yourself. And my question is, how are you doing? I mean, really doing. Not your business, not your team, not your revenue or your calendar or your roadmap, but you. Because I suspect the answer to that question is more complicated than you've been told recently. You're still performing, you're still in the room, but something has shifted, and you've probably been telling yourself it's stress or season or just how it is right now. All right, gotta get the hang of this. There we go. Okay. So I have a name for what's happening to you. It's the performance tax. The performance tax is the measurable cost that midlife biology extracts from high-performing women in cognitive output, earning power, and leadership capacity, when no one gives them a roadmap for what's actually happening in their bodies. Now you're paying this whether you know about it or not. And most of the women in this room have been paying it for months, some for years, and almost none of you have ever had a name for it. Today we're going to name it, and we start talking about ending it. So I want to describe to you what the last several months may have looked like for you. Tell me if it sounds familiar. Your output is still strong. You're still in the meetings, still closing, still leading. Nothing has collapsed, but something has changed, and you know it. You're waking at 3 a.m., not panicking, just awake, lying there for an hour running through tomorrow's agenda, unable to get back under. The focus that used to feel effortless, it's slower now, more effortful. The sharpness you relied on, the ability to hold 10 things in your head at once and triage them in real time, it's costing more than it used to. The resilience you built your reputation on, the bounce back that made you dangerous in hard seasons, it's longer now. Recovery is costing more. And here's the part that nobody has said out loud in rooms like this. You've started wondering if you still have what it takes. You don't say it, but it's there. Here's what I need you to hear. What you're experiencing is not ambiguity. It's not weakness. It's not burnout. It is biology, specifically a convergence of physiological shifts that medicine has dramatically underestimated in their impact on high-performing women. Four things are happening in your system. I'm going to stay at high level because this is a performance conversation, not a medical lecture. Your sleep architecture has changed. The deep, restorative cycles that regulate your hormones, consolidate your memory, and clear your brain of metabolic waste. They're shortened. You're in bed. You're not restoring. Your cortisol rhythm has shifted. Excuse me one second. Gotta let somebody in here. Your cortisol rhythm has shifted. Your stress response is dysregulating, elevating when it should be low, flat when you need it. You're running your business on a misfiring fuel system. Estrogen is a brain hormone, not just a reproductive one. It supports memory, verbal fluency, processing speed, and emotional regulation. When it declines, cognitive friction increases. And in leaders, that friction is just, it's expensive. And then there's your initial individual biology. Your genomic profile and methylation cycle determine how your body specifically processes stress, nutrients, and hormones. Standard blood work measures the population average, but you are not the population average. This is not mood disorder. This is a performance system under biological pressure, and you've been managing it with no roadmap. So you did what high performers do. You went to get answers. You described the sleep disruption, the cognitive fog, the exhaustion that doesn't make sense given how well you manage yourself. They ran the panels. They checked the numbers. And then they said, your blood work came back fine. Now, you walked out of the office more confused than when you walked in because you knew something was wrong. You've been a high performer long enough to know the difference between normal stress and a system that isn't functioning the way that it should. And you know what? You were right. And here's why those 5 words are so dangerous. Not because your doctor lied to you, but because the system they were trained in, it was never built for you. And here's what almost no one tells the women in this room. The reference ranges that your doctor uses for estradiol, for cortisol, for thyroid, they were built predominantly on male biology and extrapolated to women as if biology is one size fits all. I want to let that sink in for a second. Men were the ones tested primarily for our blood work. In 1977, the FDA issued guidelines excluding women of childbearing age from clinical drug trials. The exclusion shaped decades of medical research. Fewer than 30% of participants in industry-sponsored trials today are women. Only 5 to 14% of studies across disciplines even analyze outcomes by sex. Your doctor is working from a map that was drawn for someone else's body. So let me make that specific, because this is where the data gets personal. Estradiol, the estrogen most critical to your brain function, your memory, your processing speed, has a healthy range of 60 to 250 milliliters before menopause. But many labs consider normal after age 40 if it's below 60, including 0. That's not a typo. 0 estradiol is listed within the normal reference range on the paperwork your doctor reviewed. That result didn't trigger a flag. It triggered a fine. Let's move on to cortisol, your primary performance hormone, a rhythm that rises in the morning, sustains you through the day, and winds down at night. Standard blood work captures it once, one morning draw. That single number tells you almost nothing about whether the rhythm is working or whether it's driving your 3 a.m. wake-ups and your afternoon crashes. A 4-point assessment across the day is the minimum needed to understand what's actually happening. Standard medicine gives you 1 point and calls it done. The thyroid. 1 in 8 women develops a thyroid dysfunction at some point in her life. The standard THS reference range was established using a population that included people with undetected thyroid disease. When those individuals are removed from the data, the upper limit of normal drops from 5.0 to 2.5. Some researchers estimate the current range misses as many as 75% of women with low thyroid function. 75%. And their doctors look at the number and say, looks fine. Fine is not a clean bill of health. It is the result of a diagnostic system built on the wrong baseline and applied to you as if that baseline were universal. So you went back to work. You compensated harder. You absorbed the cost. You kept going. And those 5 words just may be the most expensive words in your career. So let's talk about this further. Medicine said fine. Your organization, if you work inside one, offered an EAP hotline, a wellness app, maybe a meditation stipend. The industry said self-care. Candles and cold plunges and cortisol balancing supplements that address the system and ignored the system. Addressed the symptom and ignored the system. And none of them had a roadmap for you. You are not the problem. You were given the wrong map, or you were not given any map at all. So let's go on to the data here, because I want to show you that what you're feeling is a documented global pattern, and that the women in this community are exactly the same demographic information that the data is describing. So in detail, the RAND Corporation states that 30% of the total workforce is currently living in midlife biological transition. 1 in 3 of those women has considered leaving her job because of it. The Mayo Clinic estimates $1.8 billion in lost U.S. productivity annually from women whose symptoms are unaddressed. Broader economic models put that number closer to $26.6 billion. Stanford research shows a 10% earnings decline for women navigating this transition without support, not because they became less capable, because the system had no protocol for them. SWHR found 1 in 4 high-performing women declined a leadership opportunity during this transition, not because they stopped wanting to lead. And in 2025 alone, Catalyst tracked 455,000 women who left the workforce entirely. This data is about women like you, and most of you have never seen it in a room like this. This is not a personal failing. This is a documented global pattern, and you are in it. So here's what makes this particularly isolating for high performers. The people around you are misreading what's happening. They see a woman who seems less engaged, slower to raise her hand, more cautious, pulling back from risk. And the interpretation, if they're being honest, is that you've lost some of your edge, that something dimmed. What's actually happening is your biology is taxing your system. Sleep isn't restoring you. Your cortisol is misfiring, and the friction you're experiencing is physiological, not psychological. It's not doubt, it's a system that's under pressure. You didn't lose your edge. Your roadmap was lost, and these are not the same thing. So what is it costing you personally? The performance tax is not abstract. Let me make that personal. Cognitive friction on your decisions, the hours each week you're operating below your baseline capacity, the decisions that take longer, the ones you second guess, the relationship bandwidth, the emotional availability that used to be accessible, redirected to compensating for biology. Your team feels it, and you feel it. The Stanford number, 10% earnings decline. I want you to take your annual revenue and apply that percentage. That's not a rounding error. That's the performance tax in your P&L. And then there's the subtler cost, the rooms you didn't walk into, the moves you deferred, the version of yourself you used to show up as and haven't quite reached lately. The performance tax is not a small number, and it's optional. So the blood work looks fine, the most expensive words in your career, not because your doctor was incompetent, because the ranges they used were built on the wrong population, because a single morning cortisol draw cannot capture a rhythm, because the lab considers zero estradiol normal. In a woman over 40, that's normal. Because a thyroid reference range that may be missing 75% of women with low function was handed to a physician who had no reason to question it. The system was not designed to find what's wrong with you. It was designed to rule out disease in a population that didn't include enough women to even know the difference. So those words, blood work looks fine, they closed the door. And you kept going. You white-knuckled through the mornings that used to feel effortless and told yourself it was just the season. It was not just the season. It was a biological system under pressure with no support and no roadmap. So that ends today. Let's put numbers to this because entrepreneurs and leaders need to see the math, not just feel the weight. I want you to do a quick mental calculation. I want you to see the cognitive friction on your decisions. Estimate how many hours per week you're operating below your baseline. Not crashed, just below. Slower, foggier. Is it 2 hours? 4? Multiply that by your billing rate or your revenue per hour proxy. See, that's a line item. The Stanford Gap says 10% earnings decline for women in this transition without support. Take your current revenue projection. What does 10% represent? For most women in this room, that's not nothing. And then compound that cost. The leadership move you paused, the partnership you didn't pursue, the room you didn't walk into because you weren't sure you had what it took that day. The performing tax is not a rounding error. It's a line item that never showed up on your balance sheet because no one gave you a name for it. The organizations that figure this out first will have a talent advantage. The women who figure it out first will have a performance advantage. I want to acknowledge something in the room we're in right now. You see, this community, either live or when people see it again, this community spans countries, and this pattern spans every one of them. In the UK, the Fawcett Society estimates nearly 2 billion pounds in annual economic losses from this transition. In Australia, Deloitte found 51% of women report their performance was negatively impacted. In the US, the numbers run into the tens of billions. Every market, same gap. No organizational protocol, no personal roadmap until now. You see, the Shikhanami community exists because of this gap. You are exactly the women positioned to close it for yourselves and for the organizations that you lead. So here's what I want you to hold. This is not a story about what you're losing. It's a story about what becomes available when you stop paying the tax. When a woman in this life stage gets the right biological roadmap, her sleep restores, her cognition sharpens, her resilience rebuilds. She is not a diminished version of herself. She is herself, functioning with the right support. That 10% Stanford gap closes. The decision's clear. The rooms become available once again. And for the entrepreneurs in this room, this is not a wellness win. That's a revenue conversation. The ROI of ending the performance tax is cognitive output, earning power, and the next level you've been deferring. So let me tell you who I am. And why I built what I built. Because the roadmap is actually what this looks like. See, I'm a precision performance strategist with over 16 years working at the intersection of women's biology and executive performance. But what's more important, I was you. I was the high performer whose blood work came back fine, who knew something was wrong and couldn't get a straight answer from medicine, from management, or from the wellness industry that was supposed to have the answers. So I went looking. 16 years, thousands of clients, and a relentless commitment to one question the industry has largely refused to ask. What does precision biology actually look like for women who are leading at the highest levels? I built what didn't exist, not because I saw a market opportunity, but because I needed it first. You see, I'm not your doctor. I'm your peer with a protocol. So what I built is the Midlife Performance Protocol, precision biology for women at the top. In one sentence, it is a precision-based, individually mapped roadmap that restores biological function and protects executive performance in midlife women. Using data, not guesswork. It's not a program. It's not a wellness initiative. It's a protocol built from your specific biology, not population averages. And that's why your blood work came back fine, because standard tests measure the population. The protocol was designed for you, the actual woman, with her actual biology and her actual context. And that's an entirely different thing. You see, the protocol starts with a complementary assessment, a full picture of where you are biologically, physiologically, and in terms of your performance and leadership goals. From that assessment, combined with CLIA certified genomic testing and comprehensive methylation analysis, we build your specific roadmap, not a generic plan, yours. Within 30 days, most clients report measurable improvements in sleep quality and energy. Within 60 days, cognitive sharpness and emotional resilience are typically restored. And those are not wellness outcomes. Those are executive performance outcomes, measured in decisions, capacity, and what becomes available again. So for those of you who lead teams and organizations, you now have the data and language that your CHRO, your CFO, and your boards don't have yet. I also work with organizations who build the framework that currently don't exist. Education for leadership teams so they can stop misreading the signals, policy, architecture for midlife performance support, and a pathway for women and their organizations to access the protocol directly. The organizations that build this framework now will not be playing catch up in 5 years. They're going to be the case study. The women who go through this protocol don't come back to me saying, I feel better. They come back to me saying, I feel like myself again. And that's not a small thing for a woman who built her reputation on being sharp, resilient, and fully present. Getting that back, having language for what was happening, having a roadmap that worked, that's not a wellness win. That's a leadership restoration. The sharpness returns, the decision's clear, the next level, the one you paused on, becomes available again. You see, you're not losing your edge. You never lost it. You just needed that roadmap. So what comes next? A few things I want to put on your radar before we start the questions and comments here. The Midlife Performance Protocol is coming to market as a full book, a boardroom-ready framework launching soon. And I'd love to have you on the waiting list for it. If you want to work with me directly, individual precision assessment, genomic testing, your personalized roadmap, that conversation starts with just a single reach out to me. And if you know a stage that needs this conversation, a summit, a board, a leadership team, please make the introduction. I want to be in those rooms. And before we start this for the question and answer, again, as I stated earlier, I want to give you guys a couple of parting gifts. And in order to do so, I do need your contact information. So in the chat, if you will please give me an email, contact information, and I would love to have you to reach out to me to get this. The Chiconomy report will be coming your way. And if we are not friends yet, oh, I skipped a thing here. If we're not friends yet on LinkedIn, please, please, please join me. It's my primary source of sharing my information and conversation. The QR code is right there. And I would love to connect with all of you if, again, we currently are not connected. So that's it for my presentation. And I would love to open this up now for any conversation, anything you guys have that you'd like to talk about.
Jules, I think that's really interesting. Didn't know that piece of it with the testing, but I find it very interesting because it's the same thing. I work with the autism world. It's the same thing for them where their testing that they test to see if a child has autism or not is all based on research that was done on boys. And that's
Ah,
one reason that girls are so underdiagnosed. So it's interesting that you kind of have these underdiagnosed or not misdiagnosed, but inaccurate measures for both younger women and as we get a little bit older up into, kind of our age group.
yeah.
It seems like it's kind of across the board.
Yeah, I mean, the blood work is the blood work. And unfortunately, across perspective is that most of the blood work has been measured on men, on the male DNA and not for female, which is really sad because, so much of what we get diagnosed with, I think we are left out of so many diagnoses and things that we can be addressing because of the overall your blood work came back fine, response from doctors.
Mhm.
So
Do you find, are there any studies currently going on for women or on women? Do you know if they're doing that research or they're just still not at that place yet?
it is improving, but unfortunately, the funding is not there as of yet that it really needs to be the priority. And unless, the scientists are specifically interested in finding out more about what's happening with women, Unfortunately, we're still years behind in that regard.
Thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, ladies, if there are no other questions or comments, I appreciate you all greatly for coming on board and sharing with me. I will have a recording of this conversation. If something resonated with you, it would mean the world for me to share it with your peers, your friends, your coworkers that, could benefit from opening their education and their minds to this conversation. So I thank you all for joining me, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much.